Some people call you Dr. Doom. Do you think that's fair?
I haven't really been called Dr. Doom in a while. I mean, they started calling me Dr. Doom back on CNBC when I was coming on in 2005 and 2006, warning about the housing bubble and the coming financial crisis. And they called me Dr. Doom because of that. And I used to say, well, I'm Dr. Reality. And as it turned out, I was right. I mean, the crisis that I was warning about that earned me that moniker happened. And so I was Dr. Reality. They were the ones that were living in a fantasy world. I was just trying to, bring reality into the conversation. And the same thing I'm warning today about a much bigger financial crisis, currency crisis that is waiting for us here. And you can call me Dr. Doom if you want, because I am forecasting some economic doom for a lot of people, but it's not because I just want to make that forecast. That's what's there. That's what I see, because I understand the errors that the central banks and governments are making, and I know what the ramifications are. Just like I knew that when Greenspan was in charge, inflating the housing bubble. But the powers that be did not. I mean, they thought we were enjoying genuine prosperity, and I knew they were wrong. And the same thing is happening again. This is an artificial bubble inflated by central banks, the Fed in particular. And, the crisis that we have, laid the foundation for is now much greater than the one back then. But of course, the same people who were oblivious to the coming 2008 financial crisis are oblivious to this one. Even though it's even bigger, but the causes are the same. I mean, it's the same bad policies that have caused the problems that have sown the seeds for the next crisis.
So when do you think the next crisis is coming? How big and how bad do you think it will be, and how long do you think it will last?
Well, I think the balls are already in motion, because, we had this big increase in consumer prices in 2021. We get the official CPI numbers, I think, on Wednesday here, but it's going to show that prices were up 7%, maybe a little bit more, during 2021. That would be the highest rate, I think, since 1982-ish. But, if we still measured prices the way we measured them in 1982, we would have, reported about a 15% increase in consumer prices, which would make it worse than any individual year during the 1970s or 1980. So this was a horrible year of inflation, and I think this is, really the beginning of the end, because now the Fed can no longer justify 0% interest rates and quantitative easing. It needs to raise interest rates, and it's now talking about raising interest rates, and it may in fact raise them. We'll see. It may not just talk, it may actually do it. But the problem is, even the rate hikes they're talking about are too small and too late to make a difference. Because the Fed is talking about raising interest rates maybe to 1% by the end of the year, and then maybe to 2% by the end of next year. Well, we got 7% inflation. You can't raise rates to 1 or 2%. Rates need to be higher than the rate of inflation if you want to slow the rate of inflation. So interest rates need to go, 10%. But of course, we can't even get near 10%. We can't even get to 5%. We have so much debt because of all the past money printing and all the stimulus of the Fed. They have created a situation where it's impossible to fight inflation, and so they won't do it. And that's going to be the seeds of the next crisis, because as the Fed is, tightening up on its monetary policy to make it less loose, right? We're not going to have tight money. We're just going to have money that's less loose than it was before. The problem is less loose is not enough to sustain the asset bubbles, in a lot of these financial assets. So we get a crash, but it's not tight enough to actually bend the inflation curve. And so inflation is going to keep getting worse, even as the Fed is hiking rates supposedly to fight it. That's going to lead to stagflation. That's ultimately going to cause the Fed to reverse course and start easing again, even though inflation will be worse than when it started its tightening campaign. And somewhere along the way, the markets are going to wake up to this reality and the dollar, or the bottom rather, is going to drop out of the dollar, and then we're going to have a currency crisis that will morph into a sovereign debt crisis, and then it's all over. Then we have a real collapse, because then the Fed has to let interest rates go way up, and everything comes crashing down in a much more spectacular way than '08, except nobody gets bailed out. Everybody has to suffer the losses in their entirety, and they'll be much bigger. Or they don't have the guts to do that, and they just keep printing money anyway, and they print the dollar into oblivion, and we have hyperinflation, which of course would be even worse.
So I hope you enjoyed the video. Now, if you like this, we have a full, deep interview, the uncut, unedited version. So if you want to watch that, the link is below. But first, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel.